And this is why this is so incredibly tragic. Because remember one thing else we said from last week? That when you're traveling this path, it's not necessarily linear, it's cyclical. We discover our strengths and our call, and we begin to develop our vision and our skills and our character, and we're deployed in a place of service. But when we're deployed, we make more discoveries about ourselves and life, and those discoveries lead to more growth or development, which lead to either new deployments in different positions of service or more fruitfulness in the ones we're in. And the more we keep cycling through this path, the more powerful people we become. And the longer we're involved in this, the more world-changing we become. And so Satan just gets in there and says, I gotta try to burn these people out. Because if they go through the cycle very much, there could be no stopping them. So I guess the question becomes, okay, how do we avoid burnout? How do we stay in the game? How do we keep enough internal fuel that we can just keep walking the path and walking the path and walking the path? Mark Gorkin he's actually a licensed clinical psychologist. He's known as the stress doctor. And he's a nationally renowned expert, lecturer, and author on the subjects of stress and burnout. And it's interesting because in his writings, he says that there are essentially 4 things, 4 dynamics that people must experience on a routine basis if they're going to keep their tank full and not burn out. Here's what's fascinating about the 4 things he suggests from his observation working with so many people. What he has discovered is exactly what the Bible has taught all along. I love it when modern scientists, social scientists, behavioralists discover things through observation that God said thousands of years ago was true. And so let me give you, with just a little modification, what Dr. Gorkin says about the 4 dynamics we must experience on a routine basis if we're going to avoid burning out. Here's the first one, and it is results. Nothing fires you up, nothing fills you up as much as being successful, as winning, as accomplishing your goal, as going, my efforts paid off, it worked. Hey, have you ever seen the end of like a playoff game, football, basketball, any level? At the end of the game, who are the ones going, yeah, and who are the ones going, I mean, when you win, when you succeed, it's like you get all filled up and yeah, we can take on the world. But when you lose, it's like, oh man, it's just so hard. And when we see results, when we actually see evidence that our efforts have paid off, it helps to fuel us up. And you know what's interesting about success? It's always a combination. Listen carefully. It's always a combination between our preparation and effort and God's assistance. If we assume we don't have to prepare ourselves or try hard, that God will just do it, success will never come. If we think that somehow through our preparation and effort alone we can succeed, we never will. It's kind of like the David versus Goliath thing. How is it that David was able to bring down the world's greatest gladiator in history as a young boy with just a sling and a stone? The answer is he had honed his skill and he trusted in God. So we need to see results if we're going to help our tank be full. Secondly, it's suggested that in order to experience a lack of burnout, we need recognition. We need other people to see our efforts and go, hey, I saw what you did, and you know what? I appreciate it. You did a good job. Way to go. We need recognition because we, on the one hand, can feel good about a job well done, but when someone else sees it, recognizes it, and relays that to you, hey, I noticed it, great job. It just so amplifies the joy that we get out of what we've done. We need others, at least every now and then, to recognize and to relay that information to us. It amps up our levels of joy and strength. Back when we lived in South Carolina, my wife and I used to frequently go to North Carolina to ski. We were kind of avid downhill skiers for a number of years when we were young and had no children. And I remember that we were at Beach Mountain in North Carolina. We were night skiing. And I'd been working on my mogul technique. And I'd done a number of runs, and I was getting a little tired, so I kind of, skied off, and I reconnected with Sandy, and we took a couple of other runs, and I said, I'm going to go back to the mogul run, and I'm going to take another one, because I'm feeling a little better right now. And I remember I got to the top of that mogul run, and I kind of picked out a basic line, and I said, okay, here we go. And off I went down this mogul run on an advanced slope. And it went, how many of you are skiers or snowboarders? Can you identify in your life the perfect run? This was the perfect run. I mean, it was like I hit every mogul just right. I mean, absorb, come to the top, pop, sometimes get a little bit of air, do a little bit of trick. It lasted 30 seconds. I wish it would have lasted 30 minutes. It all went right. I mean, everything was aligned. It was perfect. I remember I got to that run, I put the brakes on it, and I looked up and I thought, yes, that was awesome. And then suddenly, I heard this. I heard people applauding. And I'm like, what? And I turned around and I looked at the bottom of the slope, and there's 7 or 8 skiers who, for whatever reason, decided that they were going to judge all the people coming down the mogul slope. They actually had cards from 1 to 10, and they were holding them up. And here's a bunch of people clapping, and they all held up, and it was 10s right across the board. And I thought, yes, somebody saw it. I finally got the perfect run in, and somebody could share the beauty of it. How it just so amped up my satisfaction and my energy and my joy. You know what that was? That was simply an illustration of how human beings were made by God to operate. And when other people see any of us doing something well, and we just give them an attaboy, way to go, I saw it, you're good. It's like, whoa, it helps fill our tank. It's why at the end of many of the Apostle Paul's letters, he takes time to say, thank so-and-so, praise so-and-so, remember so-and-so. He's giving recognition because he knows what that means. And that's a dynamic we need to experience to avoid burnout. Here's a third one. The third one is relief. Sometimes we just need a break. We need time away. We need time off. We need to get out from underneath the burden so we can relax a little bit, enjoy a little bit, recharge a little bit. Those times are incredibly important. Isn't it interesting that shortly before, Jesus went to Jerusalem for the last time to be crucified and then rise from the dead? That he looked at his closest companions, the 12, and he said, let's get away and rest for a while. It's like, what's that all about? Is Jesus knowing not only for himself, but for those who are following him, that sometimes you need to get away and just rest. You need to get away and be refreshed. You need to let somebody else carry the ball for a little bit, and you just kind of relax and recharge and be refreshed. We all need relief if we're going to avoid